and welcome to the channel, SouthWood Designs. Thanks again for tuning in and seeing what we're doing in terms of this next part of the Optimum Workbench build. This is part 2, and today we're going to be focusing on three things. Dust collection for the router, bit of a mess underneath if you don't collect the dust that comes through from underneath the router. Also a router fence, and that's made out of hardwood, and the build of that is going to allow a lot more flexibility in the use of that piece, and that's going to run nicely through this beautiful res track that we fitted in the previous video. And the other thing is to deal with the power situation. At the moment I've got extension leads and cords coming here, there and everywhere, and I want to just try and streamline that power so that I've got one lead coming out going into the mains, and everything is tucked underneath nicely and out of the way, so it's not a hazard other than that one lead. And so we'll work through the build of those in the next few minutes of this video. It will be slightly shorter than the first part of the video. I just don't want it to get too big, but certainly it's going to be a nice bite-sized chunks that you can work through as well if you're building through this sort of project as I am. So let's get cracking. So we're going 75 centimeters wide, 29.5 inches. And we'll be going 125 centimeters high, so about 5 inches high. It's going to be the height of the fence. So we're going to slip up here and then rip through there. Good, okay, get onto it. Okay, so I've got this retractable cable reel which I just bought fairly recently, and basically it retracts, or it extends 15 meters. The cable pulls out. It's on a, I'll just try it. There you go, that holds on, and then you can pull it back again and that retracts. So the idea of this is that there'll be the one point coming out of the table, and everything that I need will be plugged into a power board, which is this thing here. And this is going to plug into the retractable, and then the retractable just plugs into the main power outlet somewhere, wherever you happen to be, around the garage, shed, workshop, etc. So one thing that I had to have done, and you should do this with a professional, is that when they come out the box, the lead that's retractable is the female part, i.e. it's actually this one, and the lead that plugs into where you want it to plug into is the male part. And it needs to be the other way around, because this bit here is the bit that's going to retract out and plug into your house somewhere, into your mains power. Sorry about the noisy birds. And then this is going to plug into, in my case, this power board here. And I can have half a dozen things plugged into this. I won't, it'll probably be 3 or 4. The table saw, what else? A couple of other things. Oh, the vacuum, the shop vac, etc. So I'm now going to fit this, and I've just tried to look at what would be the most suitable place. Ideally, there's a nice hole just here that exactly fits the size of that retractable power unit. But the problem is that it's right next to the table saw, and I don't want to have a lead pulling out from here. So what I'm going to do is actually have it round the side here, and I've just marked just here where I'm going to drill the 2 points where the bolts are going to go into that are going to hold the retractable power unit in place. It's then going to sit out this way, and I'll be able to pull the lead out from the top here. And also through this little window here, there's a reset switch on the power boards, which is this one here. So if it overloads, I'll be able to get to it and press it to reset quite easily. I'll just put a cover over this ultimately, just to cover that up so that it isn't on view. But that's the plan there. So let's get to it. So the other thing too is I'm going through this timber here. I'll just put a marker on the drill so I know how far to drill into, which is the depth of the bolt, making allowances for the framework on the retractable cable unit. Just a little tip, you've probably seen it before, but maybe if you haven't, it just shows you what depth you need to drill to once you reach the tape, and then you stop, and it just stops you going all the way through the timber. There you go, the SouthWood Designs handy hint of the day. Okay, so I started this off. I've just put a clamp on there to hold the thing in place, and I'm just putting these on now. Exciting bit of photography here, but anyway, you know, that's what it is. Okay, so that's in, and then just to hold it in place and stop it flapping around, I'm just going to put a screw through here into this upright, just there. But so today we're just going to measure up for the dust collection for the router. I've just got some scrap timber here that I've got from a previous project, and I have actually some breadboards and some cutting boards and charcuterie boards that I made samples of. So I've got some edges on them here that you can see, and it's round. It's just a mitered edge. So I'm just going to trim these off I'll go 300s because that gives me the full extent of the router plus the battery fully extended down. I'm never going to go that deep because the gap between there and the top is pretty large, and I haven't got a router bit that long, but just to be safe and give a bit of leeway. First I've got to trim this just to take the edge off. I'll do that now. Now, because I'm going to be cutting some fairly thin pieces, I've got a zero clearance cover here. This is just a standard cover, and I do plan to make a zero clearance one. Where you're cutting some really thin pieces, there's a possibility that the thin piece that you've cut is going to slip down into the side there. So I'm just going to make do. There's a phrase in Italian called arrangiarsi, which is making do with what you've got in the cupboard or in the fridge, and I'm just going to be doing a bit of arrangiarsi with this. So I'm just going to put tape down either side to give me a fake zero clearance, which will temporarily do the job. There we go. Arrangiarsi, making do. Whatever you got, you use it. Cooking or woodworking. Happy days. Double check. Measure twice, cut once. 320, good, spot on. Bit of dust collection. Got to get an auto turn on for the dust collection. I'm working on that. As is often the case, I'm going to change this along the way. What I'm going to do is I've got the three side pieces here, and then I've got two brackets here across the front. Put a ply front here, which will be the door, and I'll attach it with magnets. I'll fit magnets here and here, and that'll allow me to attach the door. Reasonably strong magnets, and then I'll have ply for the base to go on. Always got to be outtakes, haven't they? Self-tapping screws, which is good. Okay, clamps come off. That's meant to happen. Make sure it's a pretty tight seal. In fact, I'll put sealant inside, and I'll also put an angle in so that it directs the dust through towards the extraction point, but I'll figure that out in a sec. I love those self-tappers. Right, there we go. 3 parts done. Now, just need this centre part. Centre part, you know what I mean. I'm talking about hairdressing. So the plan is to do something similar to this. There, I've got one of these multi-stage hoses, as you can see there, and I'm going to drill a 32mm hole in the side, and that's going to fit in there down the bottom. Happy days. I'll do it in the side rather than down the bottom. It just gives me a bit of real estate underneath, and I think it'll still be as effective. I can have a play around with it and see whether I need to make any more adjustments. Okay, here we go. Another outtake. Where's my thing? Yeah, that's gonna work. Look at that. Just got to cut this first section off. This bit here and this bit here. Okay, happy days. I'll do that off camera because you don't need to see that. Gonna cutty, gluey, pokey, and then that's where your nozzle goes. Right, battery problem. Didn't have it plugged in. That's technology for you. So if you can just see in here, what I've got is two angled pieces which are just not quite sitting right, but they're both angled so that they'll direct the dust down into the bottom and right through to the dust collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these in place and make sure that there's a seal all the way around with a ton of glue, and hopefully that will do the trick in terms of directing the dust down. It's going to fall with gravity anyway, but it'll just help to focus it in where the extraction point is, just here, which again I hope you can see that little black hole there. That's where the dust hose is going to go, and that'll suck that out. Okay, so slight change of plan. I was going to use these brackets on top here to screw from underneath, but I don't think it's quite going to work as effectively. So what I'm going to do instead is cut 4 triangles to go in each corner with the miter saw and screw those in there, and then I can screw through from the top down, because I actually happen to have some screws in the top here that are leveling screws, because I just went very slightly too deep with the router when I cut out the groove. So that actually is going to work out well. And then I'll screw through the top there into this and hold it in from underneath. So that's the plan. Let's see if I change it again. But so far this is change number 2. Then screw through there through the top. So I've just got the 4 corner brackets on. I've just put the box underneath. I'm just going to clamp it in place, and then we'll screw it in using button head screws. Beautiful, there we go. So let's just take this off here so you can see. box underneath, and I'll just grab the lid. So there's a box underneath, plenty of space for the battery. It's going to sit in here, like so. I'm going to put a handle roughly here. I've got to get some magnets just to hold this, although it's pretty tight, but magnets will just hold it in place. Pretty rough inside, but it doesn't really matter. And here we go from the top. So these are the 4 screws that are sitting on, that just raise slightly this perspex, because I just went a little bit too deep. So the 4 screws, one in each corner, just brought the perspex back up again, a bit of dust on it. I brought the perspex back up to where it should be, spot on level with the board. Happy with that, that's good. So just off camera, I've just made this little handle, just needs a bit of a tidy up. The handle's going to sit on here, like so. That's obviously plywood, the handle's made out of hardwood, that'll sit there, little ridge underneath for your fingers, but I'll just screw that through with some screws from the back, and that'll be nice finish. I've just got a little bit of burn marks there, which happens with a router that you can't adjust the speed, but that's the way it is, no big deal. That'll be nice little handle. Happy days. Thumbs up? Why do I keep doing thumbs up? So I've been thinking about what to do with the dust extraction, and I've gone through a few iterations and a few options, and I think I've come up with something that's going to work. I've got 2 main things that are going to need permanent dust extraction, and that's obviously this one here, the router, and also the table saw that's behind me. Those are going to be fixed in place most of the time, certainly the box for the dust extraction is. And so what I'm going to do is figure out some pipe system, and probably use PVC tubing, that's going to join those 2, but I want to have a lock of some sort, and that will probably be a standard plumbing lock, a water lock. And so what I can do is lock off the one that I'm not using so that I don't lose suction, because I'm running this off the shop vac, and the shop vac is okay, it's quite powerful on its own, but if it's trying to suck through 2 or 3 tubes at once, it's going to lose a fair bit of power. So what I think I'm going to do too is run it through. You can see this gap here. So this gap here is from where I put this base on that the mitre saw sits on, and you can see through there. There's the tube for the out the end of the table saw. So if I have a tube come straight up and underneath here, and through to the centre somewhere. I've got the shop vac underneath here. I'm going to sit that under in that position. What I'm thinking is have a pipe system, and looking for, it'll be underneath but from above, one coming through here, one coming through in this position and across to here, and then have the, because this is kind of dead space here, have the taps that I can turn on and off, because I can just slide this tray out. This tray is just part of the I'll just show you quickly, it's part of a normal bench, and most of the time this is sitting on here. So if I want to put the shop vac on, I can just slide this back like so, turn the appropriate lock that I want to turn, and lock off what I'm not using and keep open what I am using. That's the plan there. The other thing I was thinking about was the shop vac being under here. Every time I want to use it, I've got to reach under and turn it on and turn it off like that. So you can get these switches that will allow you to turn things on and off remotely. And then I thought, well, hang on, I've got a house full of automated lighting upstairs. So I can just get a socket that I can plug in and just remotely, even by voice, turn on and off the vacuum, or by phone, using the remote system. So I think that's what I'm going to do, rather than have a complex electrical switch, and then I can turn the shop vac on anytime I want easily. May not work with voice if it's on blowing and or sucking rather, as the shop vac does, and I'm trying to tell it to turn off with the voice, but certainly I've got apps on the phone and so on that I can use, and it's easy enough to pick up a remote switch. So I think I might do that. That's going to be the next thing to focus on. I've run through a few different options, but I think that's the way to go. So there we have it. That's the part 2 of the build. There's more parts to come, certainly part 3 and part 4. But part 2 of the build, we finished off the router dust collection, which is great, the router fence as well. That'll be a nice addition to the toolkit for this workbench. It's had a bit of use already, and look, it doesn't really matter. The whole idea is to use it. It can be sanded back and resurfaced again if needs be, but that's the beauty of these sorts of things. It's here to be used and not just to be looked at. Bit of furniture, different story, but something like this is a working piece, and so it's going to get a bit knocked about and so on. And then the other thing, of course, is the power. We've got the single retractable power cord. We've got the single retractable power cord. That's going to be an outtake. Single retractable power cord, which is going to make it a lot easier and a lot less messy to deal with and use the bench with just one lead coming into it. So really hope you've enjoyed this part 2 of the build. I really do appreciate you watching to the end. If you've really looked this far and watched to the end and you're not already subscribed, then please do so, that'll be great. And also hit that like button because that helps as well. So thanks again for watching, and hope you will stick around for the next segment. It'll be the build of some slide out storage units for some storage boxes that I've got, and that's going to be made out of plywood, and that'll be the build in part 3, and also further thoughts on what I'm going to do about the dust collection that I've mentioned before. So thanks again, thanks for watching, appreciate your support, see you in the next video. Cheers.